Welcome, dear listeners, to tonight's story, a tale of love, betrayal, and the dangerous line between friendship and desire. Our story is called One Night's Mistake, and it begins with a woman named Lily. You see, Lily had a habit. Every time she had a little too much to drink, she'd find herself calling Nathan, the husband of her best friend, Thea. Their bond had grown strangely intimate, a dangerous dance of whispered secrets and shared vulnerabilities. "Hey Nathan, it's me, I miss you. We should hang out. Come on, let's meet up." "Lily, not now. Thea's right here. I'll call you later." "I don't care about her. Just come over, please. I need you. You know I'll just come over there if you don't, right?" "Lily, seriously, what's gotten into you? Be smart, you'll get caught. Look, I'll drop by after Thea's doctor's appointment tonight. Just keep it down, all right? And no funny business, I mean it." Fine, I'll be waiting," Lily sighs, a mixture of frustration and longing in her voice. "He better come. If I don't see him tonight, I swear." This burning desire for Nathan had slowly morphed into an obsession, a jealous ache in Lily's heart. Each glimpse of Thea and Nathan's happy marriage felt like a personal slight, twisting into a bitter resentment she couldn't explain. Lily and Thea had been inseparable since high school. When they both moved to Chicago for college, even attending different universities couldn't break their bond. They found themselves sharing a tiny apartment, two seemingly opposite forces coexisting in a cramped but familiar space. Thea, with her gentle heart and traditional values, couldn't have been more different from Lily, bold, adventurous, and unapologetically free-spirited when it came to love and life. Thea excelled in her studies, while Lily, though brilliant, preferred indulging in life's pleasures. Somehow, their friendship endured. They graduated, tested the waters of the working world, and even when their paths diverged, they remained each other's constant. It was a friendship that had defied the odds for over a decade. When Thea found love in Nathan, a charming colleague, Lily was, of course, by her side, their lives so interwoven that it was impossible to imagine one without the other. But Lily had a secret. Beneath her carefree facade, she craved a different kind of connection, a passionate fire that none of her fleeting romances could ignite. She confessed to Thea, "I just want to find a guy who can keep up with me, you know? All these guys I've dated are so vanilla." Thea found those confessions frustrating, even a little heartbreaking. It was true, though. Lily had never seemed interested in finding a genuine connection, a love built on something deeper than fleeting passion. She gravitated towards wealth and status, a string of short, unsatisfying relationships in her wake. Thea could never quite decipher what Lily truly sought, what void she was desperately trying to fill. Each time a relationship fizzled, the pattern was the same. Lily would drown her sorrows in a bottle and inevitably end up at Thea and Nathan's doorstep. This time was no different. She had just ended things with a Wall Street hotshot, a man several years her senior, but the reason surprised even Thea. He just couldn't keep up, you know? Lily confided, her words a mix of defiance and a strange vulnerability. Even with her sharp features and the faintest hint of mischief in her eyes, Lily possessed an undeniable magnetism. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who knew her worth, always certain that for every broken heart, another conquest awaited. And yet, there was a fragility in her eyes whenever Thea wasn't looking, a hint of emptiness that no amount of charm could mask. Thea knew Nathan like the back of her hand, but Lily saw something in him that Thea hadn't noticed at first. A certain vulnerability, perhaps, or maybe it was his quiet strength that drew her in. Lily had been present for every milestone of their relationship, from their first date to their wedding day, always a constant presence in their lives. But Thea couldn't deny the tension that sometimes crackled between them, a subtle shift in Lily's eyes when she looked at Nathan. A lingering touch that seemed to linger a moment too long. Nathan, for his part, seemed both drawn to and wary of Lily's attention. It was a silent, unspoken dance, a secret they kept carefully hidden. The facade began to crumble on the evening Lily, drunk and disheveled, showed up at their apartment. Thea, several months pregnant and struggling with morning sickness, had retreated to bed, leaving Nathan to play the role of reluctant host. Little did she know that her absence only served to fuel Lily's reckless impulses. "Come on, Nathan, have a drink with me? Please? Thea's not up to it, so you're stuck with me." Lily's voice was thick with a need that went beyond alcohol. "Lily, you're drunk. You need to sober up. Thea's not feeling well. I can't just leave her." Nathan tried to sound firm, but there was a tremor in his voice that betrayed his apprehension. "Who cares about her? I'm not asking for much. Just keep me company. You know I get lonely like this." Lily's eyes met Nathan's, a mix of defiance and desperation in their depths. All these guys, they think it's all about them. They can't handle a woman who knows what she wants. Nathan, with his athletic build and easy smile, had an undeniable appeal. He possessed a kindness that drew people in, a certain magnetism in his eyes that could disarm even the most guarded heart. It was this lethal combination, Thea knew, that made Lily's infatuation all the more dangerous. Lily had confessed to Thea in a moment of drunken honesty. "I almost went after him, before you two started dating. But you're my best friend." Deep down, Lily harbored a dangerous fantasy. A fantasy where Nathan was hers, where his warmth and affection belonged solely to her. The alcohol loosened Lily's inhibitions, her words tumbling out with a reckless abandon. She leaned back on the couch, her posture deliberately careless, the neckline of her dress slipping down her shoulder to reveal a sliver of smooth skin. Nathan, acutely aware of Thea upstairs, averted his eyes, his cheeks burning with a mixture of guilt and something darker he didn't want to acknowledge. "You're pretty far gone, Lily," he said, trying to sound casual. "If you're planning on crashing here, let me grab you a blanket." Lily bolted upright, her voice taking on a sharp edge. You should have been mine, Nathan. I'm the one you should have chosen." "Why her?" Nathan forced a chuckle, attributing her words to the alcohol. "Come on, Lily, don't be ridiculous. Thea wouldn't like to hear you talking like that." He turned to fetch a blanket from the linen closet, but before he could take a step, Lily was on her feet, her hand reaching out to grab his arm. "I'm not drunk enough to forget what I feel, Nathan. I've always loved you. I just hid it better." Her grip tightened, pulling him closer. "Why does Thea get to have you? Why not me?" Nathan froze, unsure how to react to this sudden, unexpected confession. Lily's words hung in the air between them, a dangerous truth that threatened to shatter the fragile peace. "Lily, stop it. Thea's right upstairs. We can't do this." He tried to pull away, but Lily held on, her touch sending a jolt of electricity through his body. "Don't I even get to tell you how I feel? After all these years, can't I be honest with you?" "Why her, Nathan?" There was a desperate edge to her voice, a raw vulnerability that Nathan found both unsettling and strangely intoxicating. He had always known, on some level, that Lily possessed a certain magnetism. But tonight, fueled by alcohol and unrequited desire, she was a force to be reckoned with. A strange heat coursed through Nathan's veins. He hadn't felt this alive in months, this desired. His marriage to Thea was comfortable, loving, but predictable. This sudden rush of adrenaline, this forbidden attraction to his wife's best friend, it was a dangerous cocktail he wasn't sure he could resist. "Lily, please," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "You need to go home." Lily's eyes locked onto his, her gaze unwavering. "Do you even like me, Nathan? Just a little? Why do you always look at me like that, like you want something you can't have?" Nathan wanted to deny it, to tell her she was imagining things. But the truth was, a part of him did crave her attention, her reckless energy, a side of himself he'd long suppressed. "This is crazy, Lily," he managed, his voice barely a whisper. "Thea, she's my wife. You're her best friend." He gently pried Lily's fingers off his arm, his heart pounding in his chest. He had to regain control of the situation before things spiraled further. He led her back to the couch, making sure she was comfortable, her breathing evening out as she drifted into an uneasy sleep. He then tiptoed upstairs to check on Thea, peeking into their bedroom to find her sound asleep, oblivious to the drama that had just unfolded below. A wave of relief washed over him, followed by a surge of guilt so potent it threatened to swallow him whole. Nathan returned downstairs, his mind a tangled mess of guilt and desire. Lily was still on the couch, her dress askew, revealing the curve of her hip and a flash of lace from her bra. He wasn't sure how to face her, how to reconcile the image of the woman he loved, sleeping peacefully upstairs, with the object of his sudden, overwhelming lust. He had always prided himself on being a good husband, especially now with the baby on the way. Thea's pregnancy had put a strain on their intimacy, her doctor advising caution, but Nathan had tried to be understanding. He'd pushed down his own desires, focusing on being supportive and attentive. But Lily was a wildfire, a stark contrast to Thea's gentle nature, and she had just thrown gasoline on the embers of his restraint with her confession. He tried to sound firm, in control. "Lily, you need to go home. We can't do this. Not now, not ever. You're not thinking straight." But Lily simply stared at him, her gaze unwavering. "You want me to, Nathan. Don't lie." He had no idea how to handle this, how to defuse the situation before it exploded. Lily sensed his hesitation and slid across the couch, nestling beside him. Before he could protest, her arms were around him, her body pressed against his. "I love you, Nathan," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I know it's wrong. I know I should be a better friend to Thea, but I can't help myself. Every time I see you, I want to be near you." Nathan's pulse quickened as he felt the warmth of her body against his. Her perfume filled his senses, awakening a part of him that he had kept tightly under wraps. He glanced nervously towards the staircase, praying Thea wouldn't choose this moment to come downstairs. The thrill of being so close to being caught amplified the sensations coursing through him. Lily's scent, her touch, it was intoxicating, erasing all rational thought. He wanted to pull away, to put an end to this madness before it went any further, but his body was betraying him. "Lily, what are you doing?" he whispered, his voice strained. "This is insane. We can't." His words were cut short as Lily leaned in, pressing her lips against his. The kiss was electric, desperate, a culmination of years of unspoken longing. It was wrong, so wrong, and yet Nathan found himself kissing her back, his hands reaching up to cup her face, pulling her closer. For a fleeting moment, he allowed himself to imagine a different reality, one where Lily was his, where her fire could consume him whole. But the fantasy shattered as quickly as it had formed, replaced by a chilling wave of guilt and self-loathing. "Lily, stop," he gasped, pushing her away. "We can't do this. You know that." "Why not?" She reached for him again, her eyes filled with a desperate longing. "Just once, Nathan. Be mine." He stood abruptly, putting distance between them. "This is madness. My family, Thea, I can't do this to her, to you." Lily seemed to deflate, her shoulders slumping as she retrieved her purse from the floor. She knew, even in her desperation, that she'd pushed too far. Nathan's rejection, though expected, stung nonetheless. She stood at the doorway, her back to him, a flicker of defiance in her voice as she said, "You might fool Thea, Nathan, but you can't fool me. I know you want this too." With that, she turned and walked out, leaving Nathan standing alone in the silent living room, the weight of his near transgression heavy in the air around him. Lily might have been right. He might not be as immune to her charms as he pretended, and that realization terrified him. Lily paused at the curb, glancing back at Nathan with a knowing smirk. "I won't be so easily dismissed next time," she said, her voice a low murmur in the night air. "Expect a text." With that, she hailed a cab and disappeared into the night, leaving Nathan wrestling with the ghost of her touch and the unsettling feeling that he had just invited chaos into his life. Sleep evaded Nathan that night. Images of Lily, sprawled on his couch with that come-hither look in her eyes, replayed in his mind. Each replay, a torment. It wasn't just lust, though God knows the temptation was there. It was the thrill of the forbidden, the danger of risking everything for a taste of something new. Lily, on the other hand, gave little thought to Nathan once she was out of sight. Her desires were always fleeting, a fire that burned bright but quickly faded. For a woman who lived for the thrill of the chase, Nathan was simply another conquest, albeit one with a deliciously scandalous edge. 2 days later, true to her word, Lily showed up at Thea and Nathan's doorstep, all smiles and casual charm. If there was any awkwardness from their near encounter, she didn't show it. The three of them shared a seemingly pleasant dinner, but a silent tension crackled beneath the surface. Lily's eyes darted towards Nathan at every opportunity, a silent plea in their depths. He, in turn, avoided her gaze, terrified that Thea might glimpse the truth reflected there. When Thea excused herself to wash the dishes, Lily seized her opportunity. She leaned in close to Nathan, her fingers brushing his arm. "I miss you," she whispered, her voice husky with a need that was impossible to ignore. "We have to see each other again. Soon." Nathan's heart pounded in his chest. Lily We can't, he hissed, gesturing towards the kitchen. Thea. Lily rolled her eyes. Relax, she's got her back to us. Don't you think I'm worth a little risk? Before he could respond, Lily did the unthinkable. She leaned in and kissed him, a quick, searing kiss that left him breathless. He pulled away, his heart racing. What was that? He whispered, his voice tight with a mixture of fear and excitement. Are you crazy? Just desperate to see you, she purred, a mischievous glint in her eyes. Their hushed whispers and stolen glances might have continued unnoticed if Thea hadn't chosen that exact moment to return to the living room. Startled by her sudden appearance, Nathan jumped back, his face flushed. What's going on? What are you two whispering about? Thea asked, her brow furrowed in suspicion. Nothing, honey, Nathan stammered, his mind racing. Lily was just complimenting your cooking skills. Right, Lily? Lily, never one to miss a beat, chimed in with a bright smile. Of course, Thea, your cooking is amazing. You really outdid yourself. Thea wasn't entirely convinced, but she let it go, chalking up their odd behavior to their close friendship. Before she could inquire further, Lily stood up, announcing her departure. Well, gotta run. Thanks again for dinner, Thea. It was lovely as always. Leaving so soon? Thea asked, surprised. Everything okay? Yeah, just got some stuff to take care of. Lily's eyes darted towards Nathan, a silent message passing between them. As soon as the door closed behind Lily, Nathan felt a familiar surge of anticipation. He excused himself to the bedroom, pretending to have work to finish, but his mind was already racing ahead, crafting an excuse to join Lily. He found Thea already in bed, engrossed in a book. Honey, I'm gonna run out for a bit, he said casually. Nick needs help reinstalling his operating system. I told him I'd swing by. Thea, used to Nathan's frequent tech support missions for their friends, didn't look up from her book. Okay, just be back soon, she murmured. Relief washed over Nathan. He grabbed his keys and headed out the door, his steps lighter than they had been in months. Lily's apartment wasn't far, just a short drive across town. He parked a block away, not wanting to risk being seen, and pulled his baseball cap low over his eyes. He'd never done anything like this before, this clandestine sneaking around, but the thrill of the forbidden only fueled his desire. He punched in Lily's address on his phone, a message flashing back almost immediately. 3rd floor. Hurry up and get up here. His heart pounded in his chest as he climbed the stairs, each step bringing him closer to the edge of a precipice. He paused outside her door, taking a deep breath to steady his nerves before raising his hand to knock. But before his knuckles could connect with the wood, the door swung open, revealing Lily. But this wasn't the Lily he knew, the one who shared jokes over dinner with Thea. She was a vision in a silk slip dress, the kind of lingerie that hinted at the promises it held. Her scent, a mix of vanilla and something altogether more intoxicating, filled his senses, making his head spin. He barely stepped through the doorway before she was in his arms, her lips pressed against his. God, Nathan. She breathed against his mouth. Do you know how long I've waited for this? Why couldn't it have been me? Why Thea? Her words, fueled by desire and a strange hint of resentment, only served to heighten his own confusion. He tried to regain his footing, to remind himself where he was, who he was betraying, but the words caught in his throat. Lily, we can't. He started, but she cut him off, her fingers already working at the buttons of his shirt. Don't overthink it, Nathan, she murmured, her voice a sultry whisper against his skin. Just for tonight, be mine. He knew he should leave, knew that what they were about to do was wrong on every level. But the pull of her was too strong, the thrill of crossing this line intoxicating. Their lovemaking was urgent, desperate, fueled by months of pent-up desire and the dangerous knowledge that their time was limited. He tried to lose himself in the moment, in the feel of her body against his, but guilt kept clawing its way back in, a dark undercurrent to their passion. You're incredible, Lily breathed, her voice thick with satisfaction. I knew you wouldn't disappoint. Lily, we need to stop, Nathan said, pushing himself away, his voice hoarse with a mixture of guilt and exhaustion. He couldn't believe what he'd done, what he was still tempted to do. What's wrong? Lily asked, her voice laced with a hint of amusement. Don't tell me you're feeling guilty. Of course I am. This is wrong. Thea, Lily said, her tone turning sharp. That's all you ever think about. Don't I even factor into the equation? Don't I deserve to be happy, too? This isn't happiness, Lily. It's a mistake. We're making a huge mistake. He could see the hurt flash in her eyes, quickly replaced with a mask of indifference. Fine, she said, rolling away from him. Go then. Run back to your perfect life, your perfect wife. But you can't deny what just happened here. You can't deny that a part of you wants this, wants me, just as much as I want you. Nathan lay there, staring up at the ceiling, his mind reeling. Lily was right. He couldn't deny the feeling she stirred in him, the way she awakened a side of himself he thought he'd buried long ago. But at what cost? I'm sorry, Lily, he said finally, his voice heavy with regret. I care about you, but I love Thea, and I can't do this to her, to any of us. Nathan, overcome with a wave of self-disgust, bolted out of bed, hastily pulling on his clothes. He mumbled a quick goodbye, ignoring Lily's protests, and practically ran out of her apartment. Lily, left alone in her bed, a smug smile played on her lips. She wasn't naive enough to mistake their tryst for anything more than a fleeting indulgence. But the knowledge that she'd conquered Nathan, that he'd succumbed to her desires, filled her with a thrill more potent than any she'd felt in their numerous encounters. The next day, Lily was back at Thea and Nathan's apartment, acting for all the world like nothing had changed. She was a master of compartmentalizing, her guilt neatly tucked away, as if their shared secret didn't hang in the air between them. Nathan, however, was on edge, his guilt manifesting in nervous tics and a desperate need to avoid Lily's gaze. But Lily seemed to relish in his discomfort, pushing the boundaries at every turn. She'd brush against him while Thea wasn't looking, whispering suggestive comments under her breath. Once, while Thea was just a few feet away preparing dinner, Lily came up behind Nathan, her arms snaking around his waist. "What are you doing?" he hissed, gently prying her hands away. "Are you trying to get us caught?" Lily just shrugged, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Just can't keep my hands off you, I guess," she purred, loud enough for Thea to almost hear. Nathan was horrified. Lily was playing a dangerous game, one that had the potential to destroy everything he held dear. What terrified him most was Thea's unwavering trust. She had no reason to suspect anything, and he hated himself for betraying her innocence. There were moments, fleeting but undeniable, where he caught a flicker of confusion in Thea's eyes as she observed their interactions. A subtle shift in tone, a question lingering unspoken. But Thea, ever the loyal friend, always dismissed her doubts. Later that week, Thea had a prenatal checkup scheduled. Lily, sensing an opportunity, suggested that she stay behind while they were gone. Thea, though initially reluctant to leave Lily alone, eventually agreed, urging Nathan to get back home quickly. He walked her to the car, his stomach churning with a potent mix of dread and anticipation. As Thea drove off, he turned and headed back towards the apartment, his steps filled with a sense of purpose he couldn't quite shake off. Lily, of course, was waiting, a triumphant smirk on her face. Lily, her intuition never failing her, had a bottle of champagne chilling in the fridge. "You took your sweet time," she purred, pulling him towards her as soon as he stepped inside. "She's going to be ours," Lily said, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Come on, help me get rid of this champagne. We have a lot of catching up to do." And with that, they were lost in each other's arms again, their passion even more reckless than before. The kitchen, the heart of Thea's home, became their battleground, their whispers and moans a stark contrast to the domesticity that usually filled its walls. Afterward, they lay tangled in each other's arms, the afterglow a potent mix of pleasure and shame. The insistent ringing of Nathan's cell phone shattered the moment, pulling him back to reality with a jolt. It was Thea. "Hey, honey," he answered, his voice strained as he tried to regain his composure. "Everything went well, just waiting for a few things. Head home, I'll be there soon." On the drive over to the clinic, a wave of nausea washed over him. It wasn't just the guilt, though that was certainly a factor. As he leaned in to kiss Thea's cheek, he caught a whiff of Lily's perfume, the scent clinging to his skin like a silent accusation. "Is that perfume?" Thea asked, her brow furrowing slightly. "You didn't smell like this earlier." Nathan's heart stuttered in his chest. It's probably nothing, honey. Maybe some of Lily's perfume rubbed off on me at dinner." Thea didn't press the issue, but a seed of doubt had been planted, a tiny crack in the foundation of their trust. Back at the apartment, Lily was her usual charming self, inquiring about the appointment and fawning over Thea. But Thea couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Their easy banter felt forced, their smiles strained. Lily's eyes, usually sparkling with mischief, now held a knowing glint that made Thea's stomach clench. She pushed the thought away, chastising herself for being suspicious. Lily was her best friend. Nathan was her husband. What reason did she have to doubt either of them? Their affair continued, a dangerous dance of stolen moments and carefully crafted alibis. The guilt that had plagued Nathan initially began to dull, replaced by a reckless abandon that frightened him more than he cared to admit. Thea's pregnancy progressed, her belly growing rounder with each passing week, a constant reminder of his betrayal. Their secret, like a poisonous vine, continued to thrive in the shadows, threatening to choke the life out of their carefully constructed facades. It seemed impossible that Thea would ever find out. Their lies were too airtight, their alibis too perfectly aligned. But fate, as it so often does, had other plans. One night, after a particularly boozy client dinner, Nathan made a fatal error. He'd gotten used to living a double life, carrying the weight of his secret with a recklessness that bordered on arrogance. He'd even begun using a burner phone to communicate with Lily, a precaution that seemed both excessive and pathetically necessary. He'd forgotten, however, that old habits die hard. As Thea was gathering his laundry before bed, his phone slipped from his pocket, landing face up on the floor. A single notification flashed on the screen, a message from Lily, her name brazenly displayed for all to see. Thea, her heart sinking in her chest, couldn't resist the urge to pick up the phone. What she found there sent a chill down her spine. It wasn't just one message, but a string of texts, each one a dagger to her heart. Tender words, inside jokes, photographic evidence of their betrayal, all meticulously documented on Nathan's secret phone. The world seemed to tilt on its axis as the truth crashed down upon her. "How could you?" she screamed, her voice raw with pain and betrayal. "How could you do this to me, to our baby? And Lily, how could she?" Nathan, his face ashen, could only stammer apologies, each word ringing hollow in the wake of Thea's devastation. He'd never seen her like this. The grief, the rage, the sheer heartbreak radiating from her in waves. "Don't touch me," she shrieked, shoving him away. "Just get out, both of you, get out of my life." There were no words that could mend the chasm that had opened between them, no amount of remorse that could erase the images seared into Thea's mind. The betrayal cut deep, shattering her trust in not only her husband but in the woman she had called her best friend for over a decade. In the aftermath, Thea shut down, her pain too raw, too all-consuming to share. She couldn't comprehend how two people she loved so dearly could betray her in such a callous, calculated way. Lily, consumed by guilt and shame, fled to Los Angeles, leaving behind a trail of broken promises and shattered friendships. The weight of their betrayal became a heavy cloak that Thea wore every day. She tried to navigate the final months of her pregnancy alone. The joy and anticipation tainted by a bitterness that refused to fade. As the years passed, Thea found a way to move on, to rebuild her life around the wreckage of her broken heart. She never spoke to Lily again, the mere thought of her former friend enough to trigger a visceral reaction. The bond they'd shared, once unbreakable, had been irrevocably shattered, a casualty of their own selfish desires. Lily, thousands of miles away, tried to outrun her guilt, but the memory of that night, of the pain she had inflicted on her best friend, haunted her every move. She could try to rationalize it, to convince herself that it was just a fling, a momentary lapse in judgment, but deep down, she knew the truth. She had made a choice, and that choice had come at a devastating cost. The story of Thea, Nathan, and Lily serves as a stark reminder that love, even the most cherished kind, can be fragile, easily broken by betrayal and deceit. It's a cautionary tale about the dangerous allure of forbidden desires and the lasting consequences of our actions. Thank you for listening. We hope this story has provided you with a moment of reflection and perhaps a renewed appreciation for the importance of honesty, loyalty, and the sanctity of trust in all our relationships.